Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into something that will feel uncomfortably familiar for anyone who's ever been the outsider in their own family. You know that tightness in your chest when you realize people who share your blood are the same ones who draw the first laugh at your expense. That's what tonight's about. At the reunion, they laughed at me until I read the old letter. You probably won't survive this story without feeling something heavy crawl up your spine. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to watch the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I'm doing here. We're talking truth, regret, and the strange ways families show love. Now turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's comfortably embark on tonight's journey. It starts with an envelope, thin, cream-colored, slightly bent at the edges, smelling faintly of lavender and dust. My name written in that same looping handwriting I used to see on my report cards my cousin Lydia's. The same Lydia who 20 years ago stood on our grandmother's porch and told everyone that I was the boring one who'll never marry or make anything of herself. I hold the envelope between my fingers, feeling that old sting of humiliation flicker awake. It's an invitation to the family reunion at the Lakeview Hotel, the same place we used to spend summers before everything fell apart. I stare at the embossed gold letters for a long time. I shouldn't care. After all, I built a whole new life far from them. New city, new job, new friends who actually like me for my quietness instead of mocking it. But family is an old ghost. You can't just delete it from your contacts list. There's always that irrational pull, the one that whispers maybe they've changed. Maybe they'll see you differently now. I place the invitation on my kitchen table, next to the plant that refuses to grow and the mug with yesterday's coffee stain. It feels like a decision is forming, not a loud one, just a quiet hum beneath my ribs. I'll go, not to impress them, not to forgive them, but maybe to see for myself if those ghosts still have faces. The thing about family reunions is that they're never just gatherings, they're rituals. Anthropologists actually call them modern tribal ceremonies, a way to reaffirm hierarchies through food gossip and fake laughter. My therapist once told me reunions aren't about love, they're about memory management. She was right. People still debate whether blood alone is enough to make someone family or if shared memories, good or bad, matter more. That night, I take out a suitcase brush off a thin layer of dust and start throwing clothes in. But packing isn't really what I'm doing. I'm rehearsing emotions, trying on old versions of myself like outfits. The insecure niece, the black sheep, the one who didn't inherit the charm or the trust fund. My hands move mechanically, but my mind keeps circling back to the one question that makes my chest tighten. Why now? Just as I zip up the suitcase, something catches my eye, a faded cardboard box on the top shelf of my closet. It's labeled in my mother's handwriting, old letters. I haven't touched it since she passed almost 12 years ago. I don't even know why I kept it, except maybe because part of me feared what it contained. I pull it down, dust motes swirling like tiny ghosts in the air, and set it on the bed. Inside, there's the smell of time, old paper, dried perfume, and something like iron. Envelopes stacked neatly, some torn, some tied with ribbon. I flip through them, scanning fragments, recipes, jokes, birthday notes. Then, near the bottom, I see one sealed envelope without a name, just the words, "Read when you're ready." My throat tightens. I recognize her handwriting immediately, my mother's. I press it to my lips for a second, half expecting to feel her warmth. Then I place it back carefully, like it might burn me if I open it too soon. There's something about timing, how one letter can wait decades for the right moment to speak. Maybe that's what she wanted. Maybe that's why I have to go. I sleep badly that night. My dreams are crowded faces, laughing forks, clinking, my father's voice echoing from the other side of memory. He's telling me to keep my head high the same way he did before he lost everything in that bitter inheritance battle none of us were supposed to talk about. The kind of family secret that sticks to your DNA, whispering through generations. Morning comes heavy with gray light. I pour coffee, sit by the window, and look at the invitation again. There's a line at the bottom. Let's celebrate where we came from. I laugh out loud. Where we came from was a battlefield grandmother's living room, cousins competing for attention, aunts comparing children's careers like Olympic medals. I always came last even when I wasn't competing. Still, part of me wants to see them. Maybe it's masochism, maybe it's curiosity, or maybe it's that strange, stubborn loyalty that families breed into you, the one that says, they hurt me, but they're mine. I know it's irrational, but most love is. By noon, I've decided. I'm going. Not because they deserve my presence, but because closure is a myth we chase anyway. Maybe this time I'll stop running. Maybe this time I'll open that letter. I grab the suitcase, slip the mysterious envelope into my purse, and look around the apartment one last time before locking the door. The silence feels approving somehow, as if the walls are saying, "Go ahead. Face it," I whisper back. "Wish me luck to no one in particular." As the elevator doors close, I catch my reflection in the mirror, older, sharper, more defined than the girl they once mocked. But there's still that glimmer of doubt in her eyes, a small bruise that never healed. It's funny how humiliation ages slower than the body. And with that thought, I step into the unknown, dragging my suitcase, the ghost of my mother's voice, and a letter that might just change everything. The road stretches ahead like a faded memory, same curves, same trees, same roadside diner with the peeling sign that used to promise best pie in the state. I'm halfway through the drive before I realize I've been gripping the steering wheel too tightly. The car's radio hums softly, but my mind is louder, replaying voices that sound like echoes from another life. Lydia's giggle, Uncle Henry's booming laugh, Aunt Rose's delicate tone that could cut sharper than glass. Family voices, they never leave you, they just wait in the silence until you come back. I try to focus on the road, on the hum of tires over asphalt, but the past keeps flashing like a slideshow. There was that summer at Lakeview when they called me Mouse because I spoke too softly. The nickname stuck for years. Back then, I thought nicknames were a form of affection. Turns out they were labels that helped them define my worth. Funny how the mind holds on to small cruelties like souvenirs. People still debate whether childhood teasing builds resilience or just teaches you to stay small. For me, it did both. Somewhere between exit signs, I start talking to myself. You don't have to prove anything, I whisper. You're just visiting. But my reflection in the rearview mirror doesn't seem convinced. She's got that tight smile again, the one that says she's rehearsing forgiveness she doesn't feel. I stop at a gas station outside my old hometown. The air smells different here, heavier like old rain and nostalgia. There's a row of postcards on the counter, all showing the same lake where we used to swim. I buy one not because I'll send it, but because I need a prop, something to remind me that the place still exists outside my memory. The cashier, an older man with kind eyes, notices my hesitation. "You visiting family?" he asks. "Something like that," I answer, forcing a smile. He nods slowly, like he understands more than I'm saying. There's a wisdom to small-town people. They read body language the way city people read screens. I fill up my tank, grab a bottle of water, and continue the drive. By the time I reach the outskirts, the sky is painted in gold and pink. My childhood house flashes by a pale blue cottage now turned gray, the porch sagging, the fence gone. Someone else's laundry hangs where my mother's roses used to grow. My chest tightens. Time doesn't just move forward. It replaces you. I pull over near the lake to breathe. The surface glows like melted glass. I can almost hear my father's laugh echoing from the dock, his voice calling me to help him with the fishing lines. He used to tell me the trick isn't catching fish, it's being patient enough to wait for them. Patience, that word again. The inheritance no one valued. My cousins inherited money, land, jewelry. I inherited patience. It's strange how in every family wealth isn't just about money. It's about narrative control. The ones who talk the loudest get to tell the story, and back then, my silence gave them power. I remember overhearing my aunts once whispering that I was the dull one, just like her mother. My mother. She who never fought, never raised her voice, but somehow carried a quiet authority they couldn't explain. People still debate whether gentleness is strength or surrender. I'm starting to think it's both. As night falls, I arrive at the Lakeview Hotel. It's been renovated, new lights, fresh paint, but the soul of the place feels the same. Inside, laughter spills from the banquet hall, that same high-pitched tone of forced cheer. My heart starts beating faster. I check in at the front desk, the clerk smiling politely as she hands me my room key. "You here for the family reunion?" she asks. "Yes," I reply, my voice barely above a whisper. There's a flicker of recognition in her eyes, like she's seen this look before, a mix of anticipation and dread. She leans in, slightly lowering her voice. "They've been talking about you, you know." My throat goes dry. "Oh, nothing bad," she adds quickly, though her expression tells me otherwise. "Families always talk." I thank her, take the key, and walk toward the elevator. My heels click against the marble floor, each step echoing like a countdown. When the doors close, I exhale shakily. There's no turning back now. My room smells faintly of lemon polish and old carpets. I drop the suitcase, sit on the bed, and take out my mother's letter. I trace the edges, still sealed and yellowed with age. The words, "Read when you're ready," glow faintly under the lamplight. I can almost hear her voice, the gentle hum she made when she thought I was asleep. My fingers tremble, but I don't open it yet. Not tonight. I want to hold on to the suspense a little longer, like a secret gift I'm not ready to unwrap. I lie back, staring at the ceiling, and wonder what they'll say when they see me. Will they notice the woman I've become, or will they just see the same quiet girl they once dismissed? Families have a strange way of freezing you in time, like a photograph they refuse to update. A sudden vibration breaks the silence. My phone. A group chat notification lights up the screen. "Family Reunion 2025, Lydia has tagged me in a message. Can't believe she's actually coming," followed by a laughing emoji. My chest tightens. Same laughter, different decade. I type a response, then delete it. What's the point? Tomorrow I'll see them face to face. Let them laugh. I'll let them think they're still writing the story. Because they have no idea that in my purse, I'm carrying the ending. Before turning off the light, I whisper to the empty room, "You wanted me to be patient, Mom." I was. Then I smile faintly, but I think it's time. And somewhere in the dark, I swear I feel the letter pulsing softly like a heartbeat, waiting for its moment to be heard. Morning arrives with the kind of light that doesn't feel gentle. It pries into every corner, forcing you to wake up even if your heart's not ready. The hotel curtains glow faintly thin as tissue paper, and I can hear the muffled sound of laughter from the breakfast hall downstairs. Laughter already. I take a deep breath, trying to shake off the mix of nerves and nostalgia clawing inside me. I've faced tougher rooms than this, I tell myself. Board meetings, court hearings, even funerals. But family rooms, they're the hardest. I get dressed carefully like armor. A navy blue dress, understated but sharp hair, tied neatly, perfume soft and familiar. My mother used to say, "Dress the way you want to be remembered." Maybe that's why I chose this scent. It's the same lilac note she wore every Sunday. The moment I spray it, I feel her near, as if she's quietly sitting by the vanity mirror, watching me prepare for battle. Families are funny that way. They disappear and yet never really leave. People still debate whether the dead watch over us or if we just invent their presence because it's easier than feeling alone. When I step into the hallway, I hear it again, that chorus of chatter utensils clinking the clatter of plates. The smell of bacon and coffee seeps through the air like temptation. My stomach tightens. I grip my purse a little harder. Inside, the letter feels heavy like a stone I've chosen to carry. The elevator ride down feels endless. I catch my reflection in the mirrored walls, chin lifted, eyes calm, but I can see the small tremor in my hand. My mother always said nerves aren't weakness. They're proof that you care. That thought steadies me. When the doors open, I walk into the lobby, and that's when I see them. Lydia, radiant as ever, her perfect curls bouncing as she throws her head back in laughter. Next to her is Uncle Henry, rounder than I remember telling one of his endless fishing stories. And then there's Aunt Rose wearing pearls that once belonged to my grandmother, the same pearls my mother was supposed to inherit. I feel that old ache bloom in my chest, but I keep walking, calm, composed. The moment Lydia sees me, her laughter stumbles midair. "Oh my God, look who decided to show up," she exclaims too loudly, the way people do when they're pretending to be pleasantly surprised. Her words slice through the room like a bell. Heads turn, faces light up, not with warmth, but curiosity. The prodigal relative has arrived. "Hi, everyone." I manage, forcing a smile. My voice sounds steadier than I feel. Lydia rushes over, air-kissing my cheek. "You look different," she says, eyes scanning my dress like she's assessing a competitor. "So glad you came. It's been, 15 years? 17, I correct softly. Wow. Time flies, she replies, already half-turned toward another conversation. Same Lydia, same dismissive grace. I find a seat at the edge of the breakfast table. A few cousins nod politely, offering small talk about weather travel careers. The same old script. Everyone trying to sound successful, content, balanced. Families love statistics. They measure worth in degrees, salaries, and square footage. I sip my coffee and stay quiet because silence is still my best defense. Across the table, Aunt Rose leans forward. "You're still single, dear," she asks, her tone syrupy. I smile thinly, still breathing too. A few nervous laughs ripple around. Lydia chokes slightly on her mimosa. I almost feel bad, almost. That's the thing about growing older. You learn that silence isn't always submission. Sometimes it's strategy, and when you finally decide to speak, people remember it. After breakfast, there's talk about afternoon events, a tour around the lake, a slideshow of family memories. The phrase makes my stomach twist. Family memories are rarely collective. They're curated. Someone chooses which photos get displayed, which stories get told, and which people get cropped out. I wonder which version of me will appear in their slideshow. Probably the quiet one in the corner holding someone else's plate. I excuse myself for some air. Outside, the sun glitters on the lake, and for a moment I can almost forgive everything. The breeze smells like pine and wet soil, the same scent from my childhood summers. I walk down to the dock, letting my shoes scuff the old wood. The water ripples, gently catching fragments of sky. I remember one afternoon long ago when I was about 12. I'd fallen into the lake clothes, heavy with mud hair plastered to my face. Lydia and the others laughed so hard they cried. My father pulled me out, wrapped me in a towel, and said quietly, "Let them laugh. One day they'll drown in their own noise." I didn't understand then. I do now. Standing there, I realize how much time changes the angle of pain. What once felt unbearable now feels like a bruise I can press without wincing. Healing isn't forgetting. It's remembering differently. I look up toward the hotel where laughter still spills through the open windows. They're probably starting the slideshow. I imagine my picture on the screen, a flash of my awkward teenage face, maybe the one with braces. The audience laughing softly, whispering things like, "She was always so quiet." But what they don't know is that the quiet ones are usually the ones holding the real story. As I walk back to the hotel, my phone buzzes. A message from Lydia. "We're saving you a seat up front. Don't be late." I stare at the winking emoji for a second too long. Something in me shifts. Not anger, not fear, just clarity. They think I'm still the same girl, the one who takes jokes and stays polite. I slip my hand into my purse, feeling the edges of my mother's letter again. Its weight feels steadier now, like a reminder of purpose. Whatever happens next, I know one thing this time: I'm not staying silent. Back in the lobby, a few relatives greet me, again, their smiles a little too wide. I nod, walk past, and press the elevator button. My reflection stares back, calm and composed. Beneath that calm, though, there's something new. Resolve. Tomorrow is the dinner, the main event. That's when everyone will be there, all the old faces and unspoken grievances gathered in one room. And maybe that's when the letter will finally speak for me. As I turn toward my room, I whisper, "You were right, Mom. Patience isn't weakness. It's timing." And in that quiet hallway, I swear I hear her laugh softly, like she's been waiting for this moment all along. The next evening arrives wrapped in nerves. The air feels too still, too expectant, like the pause before a thunderstorm. I can hear the chatter from the banquet hall even before I step inside, high-pitched laughter, the clinking of glasses, that same chorus of familiar voices overlapping like a soundtrack from my past. I pause at the door for a second, smoothing down my dress, taking a breath that doesn't quite reach my lungs. Then I walk in, and almost immediately it happens, the laugh. That same mocking burst of laughter that once chased me through adolescence. It comes from Lydia's table, and it hits me before I can even register the words. "Oh, look, the quiet cousin made it," she says, her tone too bright to be kind. Everyone at her table joins in the way people do when they don't want to be left out of cruelty. I smile because that's what they expect, but inside something tightens. Funny thing about humiliation, it never really dies. It just waits in your ribs, patient until the same sound resurrects it. I find my seat near the end of the long table, the spot where the overlooked relatives always sit. My chair is slightly wobbly, which feels poetically accurate. The hall itself looks exactly as I remember, chandeliers that flicker, just a little, round tables covered in white cloth vases with artificial roses. They've tried to make it elegant, but the cheapness leaks through like bad perfume. I glance at the slideshow playing on the big screen, photos of smiling faces, fishing trips, holiday dinners. The captions read, "Family is forever." I almost laugh out loud. Forever is such a dangerous word. Dinner begins with a speech from Uncle Henry, who still believes he's the patriarch. He thanks everyone for keeping the family spirit alive conveniently, ignoring the decades of grudges simmering beneath every smile. He even makes a joke about me. "We're so happy our shy little niece could join us. Maybe she'll say a few words if we can hear her this time." The room chuckles. Even Aunt Rose laughs softly behind her napkin. I clink my glass lightly. I might, I say, my tone calm, controlled, but maybe later. A few heads turn. They weren't expecting that. Small victories, right? The first course arrives, salad drowning in dressing. I chew slowly, pretending not to listen as Lydia brags about her son's acceptance to an Ivy League school, her husband's new real estate investment, her Pilates routine. The others nod approvingly. Families have an unspoken rule: success is currency, and whoever flaunts it most wins the night. It's a strange ritual of survival. Anthropologists would call it status maintenance. I call it competitive affection. Someone asks about my job, and I tell them briefly that I work in archives, preserving old family records for the state. Lydia smirks. So basically, paper organizing. I sip my wine, smile politely, and say, basically truth organizing. That earns a brief silence before conversation steers elsewhere. Small cracks forming in the wall of their confidence. That's how change begins. The night stretches on, heavy with nostalgia and false compliments. The DJ plays old songs, and uncles who should have stopped dancing decades ago twirl around the floor. Aunt Rose corners me near the dessert table, her perfume too strong, her eyes glinting. "You still hold a grudge about the inheritance, don't you?" she asks, almost gleeful. I blink. "I don't think about it much." "You should let it go," she says. "Your mother never cared about money." That's the moment I realize she doesn't know about the letter. My pulse quickens. "No," I say quietly. "She cared about fairness." Aunt Rose's smile falters for half a second, but she quickly masks it with that same practiced warmth. "Well, fairness is a matter of perspective, dear." Then she drifts away, her pearls catching the light like tiny accusations. I sit down again, hands trembling slightly. The weight of the letter in my purse feels heavier than ever. I think of my mother writing it, her careful handwriting, her calm expression. She knew something. She always knew. Halfway through dessert, Lydia stands up, clinking her glass. Before we move on to karaoke and bad dancing, she laughs. "I want to thank everyone for keeping this family together, even the ones who like to disappear for 17 years. Her eyes flick toward me, and the room bursts into laughter again. That's when something inside me stops shrinking. I push back my chair slowly. Actually, I say, my voice cutting through the noise, I didn't disappear. I just stopped showing up to performances like this. The laughter dies instantly. Lydia's smile stiffens. Oh, come on, we're just joking. I know, I interrupt, calm but firm. It's just some jokes last too long. For a moment, no one moves. Forks freeze midair. Even Uncle Henry looks uncomfortable. Then, as if to diffuse the tension, the DJ plays a soft tune and people start talking again, pretending nothing happened. But I can feel the shift, the subtle discomfort of people who've just realized they're being watched by truth. I excuse myself and walk outside to the terrace. The air is cool, laced with pine and lake mist. The moon reflects off the water like a coin tossed into darkness. I pull the letter from my purse, running my fingers over the seal. I want to open it right there under the soft hum of crickets, but something stops me. Maybe I want witnesses. Maybe I want them all to hear what my mother had to say when she could no longer speak. From behind me, I hear a voice. Lydia again. You know, you could have just laughed with us, she says, arms folded, wine glass in hand. I turn slowly. I did, I say, for years. She blinks, not understanding. I tuck the letter back into my purse and walk past her back into the hall. Tomorrow's brunch is the official closing ceremony of the reunion, the last act of this absurd play. That's when I'll read it. As I reach my room, I whisper to myself, "Tomorrow, Mom, they'll finally hear you." And for the first time that night, I sleep soundly. I wake to the sound of rain tapping against the window, soft but steady. It feels like the sky itself is trying to rinse the air clean after last night. My body feels both heavy and light, as if something inside me has already shifted. I sit at the edge of the bed looking at the purse where the letter waits. It's strange how a single piece of paper can feel like both a weapon and a prayer. My hands hover over it, then withdraw. Not yet. Not until they're all there to hear it. Downstairs, the hotel smells of coffee and buttered toast. The staff move quietly, clearing last night's mess, polishing away the laughter and spilled wine. In the mirror by the elevator, I notice something different about myself, not in the face or the posture, but in the eyes. They look steadier, determined. My mother used to say, when you stop asking for respect, that's when people start giving it to you. Maybe this was what she meant. I arrive at the brunch hall earlier than most. The long tables are already set, each name neatly printed on folded cards. I find mine far from the head table naturally and smile. Some things never change. But today, I'm not the one sitting quietly in the corner. Today, I have something to say. One by one, relatives start drifting and nursing hangovers and half smiles. Lydia enters last radiant even in exhaustion. She's wearing pearls today, probably Aunt Rose's. Her hair perfectly curled. Her confidence unshaken, morning, everyone. She chirps, voice dripping with hostess energy. Let's make this a day to remember. Oh, it will be, I murmur under my breath. Breakfast begins in the usual fashion: scrambled eggs, gossip, mild apologies disguised as jokes. Uncle Henry recounts yet another fishing story no one asked for. The cousins compete for attention, kids' jobs, vacations, photos on their phones. The family hierarchy is on full display like a pyramid built from ego and expectation. Anthropologists once wrote that modern families perform love through comparison. They might be right. People still debate whether competition in families keeps bonds alive or just erodes them slowly like water against stone. Halfway through, Lydia stands to make a toast. To us, she says brightly, to all the years that haven't changed what truly matters, family. Everyone claps, some genuinely most out of habit. She looks around proudly, waiting for someone to outshine her. No one does, until I stand up. I don't even realize I'm doing it until I hear my chair scrape back. My heart pounds, but my voice is steady. Actually, I say softly, something did change. The room goes still. Even the children stop fidgeting. I pull the envelope from my purse and hold it up. Before we go on pretending this is a perfect family, there's something my mother left behind. A letter. Lydia laughs nervously. Oh, come on, we're having breakfast. Can't this wait? No, I reply. My tone gentle but final. She asked me to read it when I was ready, and I am. Aunt Rose shifts uncomfortably. What could possibly be in that letter that matters now? Maybe the truth? I say. I break the seal slowly, the sound slicing through the silence. The paper is thin, fragile with age ink, slightly faded but still clear. My mother's handwriting, elegant, steady. I start reading. My dearest daughter, it begins, if you are reading this, it means time has done its work. You've grown, and I'm no longer there to defend what's right, but you must know the truth about what happened after your father's passing. I pause, hearing the faint gasp from Aunt Rose. Lydia leans forward, pretending disinterest, but clearly hooked. Your uncle and I made an agreement that I never told you about. When your father died, he left part of the property to you, a small piece of land by the lake. But your aunt convinced me to sign it over to her for safekeeping because she said you were too young to handle it. I trusted her. Years later, I learned she sold it quietly, split the money, and told the family you had refused your share. The air in the room thickens. Eyes dart from Aunt Rose to Uncle Henry, then to Lydia. No one speaks. I stayed silent because I didn't want to poison you with resentment. But silence is also a kind of lie. You deserve to know what was taken from you, not just the land, but your right to be believed. My voice trembles slightly, but I keep reading. If one day they laugh at you again, remember this. The ones who mock the loudest often fear the quiet truth the most. Speak when it matters, even if your voice shakes. By the time I finish, you could hear a pin drop. Aunt Rose looks pale, her hand gripping her glass tightly. Uncle Henry mutters something about misunderstandings, but no one listens. Lydia's eyes flick between me and her mother, her confidence cracking like thin ice. I fold the letter carefully, place it on the table, and sit down. I'm not asking for anything I say quietly. I just thought you should all hear her words. Out loud, for once. For a long moment, no one moves. Then Aunt Rose stands abruptly muttering about needing air and storms out. Lydia follows, trying to calm her. The rest of the family sits frozen, unsure where to look. I take a sip of my now cold coffee and exhale slowly. For the first time, I don't feel invisible. I don't feel small. I feel seen. Someone at the far end of the table, my cousin Mark, clears his throat. I remember that land, he says softly. It had the best view of the lake. Yes, I reply. It still does. The tension starts to dissolve, replaced by quiet murmurs, some sympathetic, some defensive, all real. That's the thing about truth. It doesn't fix everything, but it stops the pretending. And sometimes that's enough. As I leave the table, I hear someone whisper, "She's her mother's daughter." I smile. That might be the kindest thing they've ever said. Outside, the rain has stopped. The world smells fresh, clean, and a little lighter. I lift my face to the sky, letting the cool air wash over me. I whisper to my mother, "You were right. Timing." And in that fragile morning light, I realized the letter wasn't about revenge. It was about release. The silence after the storm is always the strangest part. You expect chaos, shouting accusations, but instead there's just stillness. That's what the reunion hall felt like after I read my mother's letter. No more laughter, no more pretending, just the heavy quiet of people trying to process the truth they'd spent years avoiding. I left the table as if nothing extraordinary had happened, but inside, I could feel the foundations of our family cracking, rearranging themselves in ways none of us would ever fully fix. Back in my room, I sat by the window watching the lake ripple under the gray sky. The water looked restless, like it was carrying whispers from 100 summers ago. That's when I noticed something, the reflection of a single empty chair still sitting on the terrace below. Someone had dragged it out there during the night, probably to smoke or stare into the dark. Now it sat abandoned, tilted slightly toward the lake. It reminded me of my father. His favorite chair used to sit by our window at home. He'd read the newspaper there every morning, his coffee cup balanced precariously on the armrest. After he passed, my mother refused to move it. "That's his seat," she said. "Some spaces belong to absence." That thought clung to me. Every family has an empty chair, someone missing, someone uninvited, someone we pretend we don't miss. For us, that was my father. After the inheritance mess, everyone stopped mentioning him. It was easier to erase him than to face the guilt of what they'd done. I went down to the terrace and sat in that empty chair, pulling my cardigan tighter against the wind. My reflection shimmered faintly on the lake's surface, merging with the sky. I could almost see his outline there, faint but familiar. "You'd have liked this. Dad, I whispered. Mom got the last word finally. A small laugh escaped me, soft, shaky, but real. That's when Uncle Henry appeared behind me, moving slower than I remembered his voice, unusually quiet. "You shouldn't have done that," he said. "Done what I asked, not turning around. Read the letter. It wasn't fair to your aunt." I let the words hang in the air. Fair, I repeated. "You mean like how signing away my inheritance without telling me was fair?" He sighed heavily. "Your mother misunderstood things. Rose was just trying to manage what your father left behind." "Manage," I said flatly. "That's a nice word for stealing." He flinched. The wind shifted, rattling the nearby chairs. "You think you know everything?" he muttered. "But families, they're complicated." "Sometimes you do what you must to keep things together. Then maybe it's time they fall apart," I said quietly. He didn't respond. He just turned and walked back inside, his shoulders hunched smaller somehow. Watching him go, I felt a strange sadness. I hadn't wanted to humiliate anyone, only to stop pretending. But truth has a habit of cutting more deeply than intended. People still debate whether revealing old wounds heals or only infects them again. I guess I was finding out. When I went back inside later, the brunch was over. Plates, half-eaten glasses, abandoned conversation replaced by murmured clusters. Lydia sat alone near the window, her phone in hand, but her gaze distant. I hesitated, then walked over. "You're angry," I said. She looked up, startled. "I'm not angry," she said too quickly. "Just surprised." "You could have told me before doing that. Would you have listened?" Her lips pressed together. "Probably not." I nodded. Then we saved time. For a moment we just sat there, two cousins from the same bloodline but different worlds. Her perfect composure had cracks, now small human cracks. "You made everyone hate us," she whispered. "No," I said softly. "I just stopped letting you rewrite me." Her eyes glistened. "I didn't know," she said after a while. "About the land, about your mom. I thought she didn't care." "She cared," I said. "She just never fought loud." Lydia exhaled, shoulders slumping. "I guess we both inherited something from our mothers then. Mine taught me to win. Yours taught you to wait." "Maybe that's the real difference," I said. "Yours wanted control. Mine wanted peace." She looked at me for a long time, then nodded slowly. "It's strange," she said. "You always seemed like the one missing out, but right now I think you got the better legacy." That caught me off guard. For a second I saw the girl we once were two cousins running barefoot by the lake, arguing about who'd catch more fireflies. There was still something pure in her eyes, buried under layers of pride. We said nothing else. Lydia stood, adjusted her pearl necklace, and walked away quietly. Maybe shame, maybe reflection. Either way, it was enough. Later that afternoon, the reunion officially ended. People packed their bags, exchanging stiff hugs and promises to keep in touch that everyone knew were lies. Aunt Rose didn't show up for the farewell photo. Uncle Henry avoided eye contact. I stood in the background, half smiling, half detached. The photographer asked us to say cheese, but it came out sounding hollow. I glanced at the lake one last time and whispered, "Goodbye." Back in my room, I packed slowly, folding my clothes with care. When I reached for my purse, the letter peeked out, still faintly trembling from the morning's confrontation. I slid it back into the box of old letters I'd brought from home. It didn't belong to me anymore. It belonged to the storied history. Before leaving, I left a note for the hotel clerk who'd recognized my name earlier. It said, "If anyone asks, tell them she finally spoke." I didn't sign it. She'd know who it was from. Driving away from the hotel, the road felt different, wider somehow. The rain had stopped, the air washed clean. I rolled down the window and let the breeze whip through my hair, carrying away 17 years of silence. For the first time, the weight in my chest didn't feel like grief. It felt like space room for something new. Families are complicated. They love, they wound, they repeat. But sometimes, if you're lucky, truth cracks the pattern long enough to let the light in. My mother's letter didn't just reveal a lie, it freed me from the need to be understood by people who never tried. As the lake disappeared in my rearview mirror, I smiled softly and whispered, "Rest now, Mom. We're even." The drive back feels like exhaling after years of holding my breath. The trees blur into green streaks. The radio hums softly, and the miles unfold behind me like a ribbon, cutting itself loose from the past. Every curve of the road feels like closure. For years, I'd imagined that when I finally confronted my family, I'd feel triumphant, vindicated, loud. But what I actually feel is quiet, peaceful even. Like something that was locked inside my chest has finally been allowed to stretch. Maybe that's what truth does. It doesn't roar, it exhales. Still, there's a strange emptiness riding in the passenger seat with me. The kind of silence that comes after a storm when the thunder's gone, but the air hasn't quite cleared. I pass familiar landmarks, the old church, the rusted gas station, the diner with the same crooked sign, and each one feels smaller than I remembered. Nostalgia has a funny way of magnifying things until you see them again. The hometown that once felt enormous now looks like a dollhouse, fragile and staged. I stop at that same gas station where I'd bought a postcard 2 days earlier. The cashier recognizes me, smiles softly, and asks, "Everything go okay, sweetheart?" I chuckle. Let's just say the pie wasn't the only thing with layers. He laughs. "Families, huh? They never change." "Maybe that's their tragedy," I reply, sliding him a few bills, "or their charm." He nods like he's heard that kind of tired wisdom before and hands me a small paper cup of coffee on the house. I take a sip, too sweet, too warm, but somehow comforting. People like him are the silent witnesses of the world's strangers who absorb fragments of your story and never tell anyone. As I drive again, I find myself thinking about that letter, not its content, but its existence. My mother must have written it knowing it might break the fragile illusion our family depended on, but she trusted me to open it when the time was right. That kind of faith is rare. It's the opposite of control. It's surrender wrapped in love. People still debate whether love is stronger when it protects or when it lets go. I think my mother already knew the answer. By late afternoon, the rain clouds have lifted and sunlight spills across the highway in streaks. I open the window a little wider. There's a freedom in the sound of the wind, messy, unfiltered, real. For the first time in years, I feel like I'm driving towards something instead of away. When I reach my apartment, everything feels different. The plant on the table, the one that refused to grow, now has a tiny new leaf. I smile at it like it's an old friend who finally decided to forgive me. The silence in my home feels warmer, less empty. I place the old box of letters on the shelf and rest my hand on it for a moment. "We did it," I whisper. I sit by the window watching city lights flicker on. Down below, a group of teenagers laugh, chasing each other in the rain. Their laughter doesn't hurt the way it used to. Maybe it's because I finally understand something. Laughter only wounds when you believe it's about your worth. Now it just sounds like what it is, noise. That evening, I make tea and pull out my journal. It's been years since I've written anything personal, but tonight words flow easily. I write about my mother's patience, my father's absence, Lydia's cracked pride, Aunt Rose's silence. I even write about myself not as the quiet one, but as the woman who finally spoke. It feels strange to see her on the page, this version of me who didn't flinch, didn't apologize, didn't shrink. I end the entry with one line. Sometimes the truth doesn't set you free. It just stops you from staying trapped. As I close the notebook, my phone buzzes. It's a message from Lydia. Just seeing her name makes my pulse quicken, but curiosity wins. Lydia. "Hey, Mom's been quiet all day. I think she knows you were right. I just wanted you to know. I'm sorry for laughing back then. At you, at your mom, at everything." It was easier than admitting I was jealous. I stare at the screen, rereading it 3 times. Jealous. That's a word I never thought would come from her. I type slowly, "Me thank you. I'm not angry anymore. We were kids. We learned from the wrong people." A few dots appear, then stop. No reply. And that's okay. Some apologies aren't meant to start new conversations. They're just acknowledgments that the past existed. I pour another cup of tea and step out onto the balcony. The night air smells faintly of jasmine and rain. Below me, the city hums, alive and unconcerned. For the first time, I feel part of something larger than my family's story, something unbroken. I think of my father again, of his quiet wisdom, of how he said the real test of character isn't what you inherit, but what you choose to carry forward. I realize I've been carrying guilt that never belonged to me, and now, finally, I can set it down. I close my eyes, letting the night breeze brush against my skin. In that moment, I imagine my parents together somewhere, him, with his newspaper, her, with her letters, watching me with quiet pride. The idea makes me smile. Maybe families don't end when people die. Maybe they just change address. I whisper, "You can rest now, both of you." Inside, my phone buzzes again, another message from Lydia, short and tentative. "Do you still have that land by the lake?" I laugh softly. "No, Lydia," I murmur to myself. "But I still have the view. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough." Days pass quietly after I return. Life settles into its familiar rhythm, yet everything feels slightly out of tune, as if I'm hearing an old song, but the lyrics have changed. I go back to work at the archives, filing documents and preserving history that isn't mine. But I notice how my hands move differently now. Slower, gentler. I used to handle other people's stories like fragile glass. Now I understand the weight of the invisible stories between the lines. The unspoken truths, the erased names, the quiet women who never got to write their own endings. My mother was one of them. But maybe, in some small way, I've written the final chapter she couldn't. At lunch, my coworker Jenna asks about the reunion. "So did it go as horribly as you feared?" she teases, stirring her soup. I smirk. Worse and better at the same time. She laughs. "That sounds like family." "Yeah," I say, staring into my coffee. "Like family. We talk about work again, about deadlines and budgets, but my mind drifts to the letter. I've read it 3 times since coming home, each time noticing something new, not in the words themselves, but in what she didn't say. My mother never blamed anyone directly. She simply told the truth and trusted time to do the rest. That kind of grace feels impossible in a world addicted to outrage. People still debate whether forgiveness means weakness or wisdom. Maybe it's neither. Maybe it's a form of self-preservation. That evening, I walked to the park near my apartment. It's golden hour, the kind of light that makes even concrete look kind. Children are playing, dogs are barking, a man plays guitar near the fountain. For a while, I just sit there breathing. I haven't cried since the reunion, but as the sky blushes into orange and violet, I feel tears welling up, not from sadness, but relief. Grief isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just the quiet acknowledgement that something heavy has finally been put down. A woman sitting next to me notices and offers a napkin. She has gray hair tied in a bun and kind eyes. "You okay, dear?" she asks. "Yes," I say, smiling. "I think I'm just unclenching." She chuckles softly. "Takes a lifetime for some of us to learn how to do that." We talk for a bit, 2 strangers exchanging fragments of our stories. She tells me about her brother, who hasn't spoken to her in 10 years, and how she still leaves a Christmas card at his old address every December. "It's silly," she says, "but it keeps hope breathing." Her words stick with me. Hope breathing. My mother used to say that too, in her own way. "Don't bury hope," she'd whisper. "Just let it hibernate." Maybe that's what I've done all these years, kept it asleep under layers of pain. When I get home, there's a small package waiting at my door. The return address reads Lydia Thompson. My heart skips. I carry it to the table carefully, like it might explode. Inside is a folded note and something wrapped in tissue paper. The note reads, "I found this when Mom went through Grandma's things. It's yours. I think it always was." My fingers tremble as I unwrap the tissue. Inside lies a delicate silver locket, tarnished but intact. My grandmother's. I remember her wearing it every Sunday, the tiny engraving of a dove almost faded from years of touch. My mother used to say it would be mine one day, but it disappeared after her death. Now here it is, resting in my palm like an apology. I open it slowly. Inside there's a small photo of my parents on their wedding day, both of them laughing, not posing, not performing, just laughing. The image feels alive, as if the moment itself refused to fade. Behind the photo, folded so small, I almost miss it. There's another piece of paper, a handwritten note, "For when you forgive." I sit there, breath caught between a sob and a laugh. Forgive whom, them, myself, my mother. For her silence, maybe all of us. Maybe that's the only way this story ends, not with punishment, but with release. That night, I walk to my balcony again. The city hums below, but I barely hear it. I open the locket under the moonlight, tracing the dove with my thumb. There's something sacred in the way metal remembers warmth. I whisper into the night, I forgive you, all of you, and me too. The words don't echo, they dissolve. Maybe forgiveness isn't meant to linger. Maybe it's meant to vanish, once spoken like smoke that leaves the air clearer. I go back inside, place the locket next to the box of letters, and sit by the window. My reflection stares back at me, a woman who has finally stopped shrinking to fit inside someone else's idea of family. For the first time, I realize how powerful quiet can be. It's not emptiness, it's space. Space for peace, for healing, for something new. Before going to bed, I text Lydia, "Got the package. Thank you." She replies almost instantly, "You're welcome. Maybe next time we meet, it'll be just us. No audience." I smile at the screen. Maybe, maybe not. But the important thing is that the cycle has been broken. As I turn off the lights, I feel lighter. My story isn't theirs anymore. It's mine, and it's finally being written in my own voice. Outside, the city sleeps under the hum of streetlights, and somewhere deep in my chest, I feel my mother's laughter ripple through the silence like the gentlest wind. The following weekend, I decide to do something I haven't done since I was a teenager. I drive back to the lake, not for the family, not for closure, but for myself. There's something magnetic about that place, like the water holds every version of who I used to be. I leave early in the morning, the city still yawning awake behind me, and by noon, the road starts to twist into green hills and sunlight. It feels different this time. No heaviness, no ghosts clinging to the rear-view mirror, just curiosity. When I arrive, the lake is almost unrecognizable. The resort is quieter now. A few families picnic near the shore, kids running barefoot through the sand. The hotel sign, once freshly painted, is sun-bleached and chipped. Even time couldn't keep up its performance. I park the car, step out, and just stand there for a minute, listening to the sound of waves lapping softly against the wooden dock. The air smells of pine and memory. I walk toward the same spot where my father once taught me to fish, the same dock where years later my cousins laughed when I fell into the water. The boards creak under my feet, familiar and forgiving. The wind is gentle, carrying whispers of old summers. I sit down at the edge, shoes off feet dangling above the cool ripples. For a while, I just breathe. No music, no phone, no noise, just the rhythm of water and heartbeat. I take out the locket Lydia sent me and let it rest on my palm. The dove engraving catches the sunlight, reflecting tiny flashes across the surface of the lake. "You'd laugh at me for coming back here," I murmur to the air. "But maybe this is what healing looks like, Mom. Quiet circles instead of straight lines. A family nearby starts taking pictures, laughter shouting the smell of grilled corn drifting through the air. Instead of flinching, I find myself smiling. Their laughter doesn't hurt anymore. It just sounds human. There's something liberating about realizing that the world goes on with or without your scars." I pull a small folded note from my bag, the same letter my mother wrote. I've read it so many times I could recite it by heart, but this time I just hold it. I think of her handwriting, the patience in every stroke. There's one line that always stays with me. The quiet ones are never truly silent. They just wait for their moment to matter. Well, Mom, I think. That moment came. A dragonfly lands on my knee, its wings catching the sun like glass. I watch it shimmer, fragile but fearless. It doesn't stay long, it never does, but its brief visit feels like a message. My mother loved dragonflies. She used to say they were souls that stopped by to check if you were still paying attention. "Don't swat them away," she'd say. "They only visit kind people." I whisper, "Tell Dad I'm okay." The dragonfly lifts off and disappears into the glare. After a while, I walk up to the old trail that leads to the hill overlooking the lake, the land that once was mine, technically. It's overgrown now, wildflowers breaking through the grass, sunlight spilling between tall pines. Standing there, I feel something shift again, a quiet recognition. This was never about owning property, it was about belonging. My family tried to take the ground beneath my feet, but they couldn't take the sky above it. I pick up a smooth stone, write a small word on it with a marker from my purse. Enough. Then I toss it into the lake, watching it ripple outward until the surface goes calm again. I don't know why that feels so important, but it does. Maybe that's how forgiveness works, too. It disturbs you for a moment, then it settles. As I head back to the car, I notice a familiar figure sitting by the bench near the trail entrance. Lydia. She's holding her phone scrolling, but when she sees me, she stands. For a second, we both freeze, unsure how to start. "I wasn't sure you'd come," she says finally. "Neither was I." "I admit, I needed to see it too," she says, glancing toward the lake. "Mom wanted to come, but she's not ready." "That's okay," I say. "Some truths take longer to land." Lydia smiles faintly. "You sound like her. Your mom, I mean. I've been told that," I say. She hesitates, then takes something out of her bag, a small photo in a worn frame. "I found this in Grandma's trunk," she says, handing it to me. It's a picture of me and her, maybe 8 or 9 years old, arms around each other, grinning with missing teeth. No competition, no pride, just kids who hadn't learned cruelty yet. "We were inseparable," Lydia whispers. I trace the photo with my thumb. "Yeah," I say softly, "before we learned how to compare ourselves." She nods, eyes glistening. "I miss that. Me too." We don't hug, not yet, but we stand there shoulder to shoulder watching the same horizon. For once, silence doesn't feel like distance. It feels like peace. Eventually, she turns to me and says, "You know Mom wants to make things right. She just doesn't know how to start. Tell her she already has," I say, "by not stopping you." She laughs, a small, real laugh. "You really did change." I smile. "No, I just stopped pretending I didn't matter." The sun begins to dip, painting the water gold. I slip the locket back around my neck, feeling its gentle weight. Maybe family can't be fixed, but it can evolve like a tide that reshapes the same shore differently every time it returns. As Lydia walks back to her car, she calls out, "See you soon." I nod, "See you soon." And this time I mean it. When I drive away, the last light of the day dances across the lake in silver streaks, and for the first time, the reflection looking back at me isn't the girl they laughed at. It's the woman who finally laughed last. The drive home from the lake feels different this time, less like an escape, more like a return to myself. The road hums beneath the tires, the wind snakes through the open window, and for the first time in years, I'm not rushing toward or away from anything. I'm just moving free, unburdened. The locket rests against my collarbone, warm from the sun, and I find myself touching it absently the way people touch talismans for luck. Maybe that's what it's become, a reminder that peace isn't something people give you. It's something you claim when you've finally had enough of waiting. When I reach my apartment, the city greets me like an old friend, loud, imperfect, alive. I park, grab my bag, and take the stairs instead of the elevator. My reflection in the hallway mirror looks steadier, the kind of woman who's no longer afraid of seeing herself clearly. There's a small envelope slipped under my door. I pick it up, heart skipping slightly, but it's not from Lydia or anyone I know. Just a flyer for a neighborhood community night. Still, it makes me smile. It's a small reminder that life continues in its ordinary ways even after personal earthquakes. I put the kettle on and sit by the window while the city lights flicker to life outside. Steam curls upward, blending with the dusk. I've always loved this time of day, the in-between moment, when everything softens, when the world exhales. Maybe that's why this story had to end in twilight, not noon. Closure isn't loud, it's tender. It whispers instead of shouts. As I sip my tea, I think about my family. I picture Uncle Henry probably nursing his pride, but secretly relieved the truth is out. I picture Aunt Rose Pearls discarded on her dresser, replaying her justifications in the mirror. And Lydia, maybe sitting with her son telling him stories that sound different now. I like to imagine her choosing honesty over performance this time. Maybe we'll never be the kind of family that fits perfectly in photographs, but perhaps we'll stop pretending that perfection was ever the point. I pick up my journal again, the same one I started the night after the reunion, and begin to write not just about what happened, but what it means. Every story I realize has two endings, the one that happens to you and the one you choose to tell. My family's ending is messy, unfinished human. But mine is choice. I write, people think silence is absence, but it's actually presence in disguise. It's the space truth needs to breathe before it finds its voice. When I close the journal, the words feel final, but not heavy. Maybe that's what healing really is, a quiet redefinition of weight. A week later, Lydia calls. It's the first time we've spoken by voice since the reunion. Her tone is softer, slower. I've been thinking a lot, she says, about us, about the way we grew up. So have I say, settling back on the couch. It's strange, she continues. I always thought our family was strong because we never broke apart, but maybe we were just too afraid to admit we were already cracked. I let her words sink in. Cracks let the light through, I say. It's cliché, but true. She laughs lightly. You always were the poet. I used to be the ghost, I reply. Poetry is just what ghosts write when they finally find a voice. There's a pause. Then she says Mom wants to invite you for dinner. Just us. No speeches, no cousins, no performances. I hesitate for a second, then smile. Tell her I'll bring dessert. Chocolate cake, she asks hopefully, like we're kids again. Of course, I say. Some rituals are worth keeping. When we hang up, I realize my hands aren't shaking anymore. The idea of seeing them doesn't fill me with dread. It feels like another chance, small but genuine. Maybe we won't become close again. Maybe forgiveness won't rebuild what time has worn down. But it's a start. And starting is enough. That night, I can't sleep. The city outside murmurs cars, passing sirens echoing faintly in the distance. I open the locket again and look at the tiny photo of my parents, their laughter frozen in sepia warmth. I wonder what they'd think if they could see me now. My father would probably say, "Took you long enough," and my mother, she'd just smile, that knowing, patient smile that said everything without a word. I whisper, "I did it, Mom. You can stop worrying now." A tear slides down my cheek, but it feels clean, not bitter. I let it fall. Some tears are meant to stay. The next evening, I bake the cake chocolate dense the way my mother made it. The smell fills the apartment, wrapping around me like memory. I pack it carefully, take a cab, and head toward Aunt Rose's house. When I arrive, Lydia is waiting at the door. No makeup, no performance, just Lydia. She hugs me awkwardly at first, then fully. "I wasn't sure you'd come," she says. I almost didn't, I admit. But then I remembered Mom's rule. Which one never skipped dessert? We both laugh, the sound shaky but real. Dinner is quiet, cautious, but there's warmth in the air. Aunt Rose looks older than I remember, her eyes tired, her voice softer. She doesn't apologize outright, but her first words are enough. "I should have told you the truth," she says, hands trembling slightly as she pours the tea. "Your mother deserved better. You did too." I nod slowly. We all did. For a while, no one speaks. Then Lydia breaks the silence. "You know, Mom," she says, "I think Grandma would have liked this." 3 stubborn women finally sitting at one table without fighting. Aunt Rose chuckles faintly. She'd probably tell us we took too long. We laugh together. It feels strange and beautiful. Imperfect, but real. After dinner, we eat the cake in the garden. The air smells of jasmine and soil, the evening light, spilling gold over everything. Aunt Rose tells stories about my father, how he used to hum while fixing the porch steps, how he always left half a cup of coffee unfinished because he liked the idea of saving something for later. I listen quietly, savoring every word. For years, I thought I'd lost my connection to him, but in this small backyard under this soft light, I feel him again. Before I leave, Aunt Rose touches my arm. "I can't change what happened," she says, "but I hope someday you'll visit again, not for ghosts, but for tea." "I will," I say, "for tea." On the way home, the city feels different again, warmer, almost kind. Maybe reconciliation doesn't come in grand gestures. Maybe it's just the steady willingness to show up one small meal at a time. That night, I step onto my balcony locket, resting against my heart, and watch the skyline pulse with light. Families live in the windows around me, arguing, laughing, existing. Every one of them carrying invisible letters they may never read. I think about how my story could have ended in bitterness, how easily I could have stayed trapped in that loop of resentment. but somehow through patience and timing, it became something else. There's a strange comfort in realizing that no family is entirely healthy or entirely broken. We're all just stories, some truer than others, trying to find meaning before the page ends. I whisper softly to no one and everyone. They laughed at me, Mom, but I read your letter, and it changed everything. The wind moves through the open window, rustling the curtains like applause. In the following weeks, I noticed changes I didn't expect. Lydia starts calling once a week, sometimes just to share recipes, sometimes to vent about work, sometimes to talk about nothing at all. Aunt Rose sends me an old photo album of my parents writing in the note, "For your archive of truth." The irony makes me smile. And me. I start teaching part-time at the university, a course on personal histories and the power of storytelling. When I ask my students to bring an old family object to class, I show them my mother's letter framed, preserved, its folds still visible. I tell them not the scandal behind it, but the lesson that truth delayed isn't truth denied. It's just waiting for its listener to grow brave enough. Some students cry, some laugh. One of them asks, "Do you ever regret reading it aloud?" I shake my head. No. Because silence was never protecting anyone. It was only postponing peace. After class, I sit alone in the empty lecture hall, letting their words echo softly. The world outside hums impatient and alive, but I feel calm. Maybe that's what legacy really means, not wealth or property, but the ability to hand down courage, even quietly. Before I pack up, I whisper one last thing to the air. Thank you, Mom. You gave me more than land, you gave me my voice. And in that still moment, I swear I hear her laughter again, faint and proud, threading through the sound of the ceiling fan. Because some letters don't just change families, they rewrite the silence between generations. If you've made it this far, thank you for sitting with me through this story. The laughter, the silence, the letter, the truth. I told you at the beginning that you probably wouldn't survive this one unchanged, and I hope in some quiet way you didn't. Because that's what family stories do. They dig under the skin, find the pulse of something raw, and remind us that love and pain often share the same heartbeat. My mother's letter didn't just expose a secret, it revealed the invisible thread between who we were and who we could still become. Every family hides its own letter, some tucked in drawers, others buried in silence. And maybe one day you'll find yours. When you do, I hope you open it even if your hands shake. Truth always trembles before it steadies you. Sometimes I still hear that laughter, the kind that used to sting, but now it sounds distant, harmless, almost like background music from a life I've outgrown. I don't flinch anymore. I smile. Because I know what they didn't. That dignity can whisper louder than any insult, and that patience in the right hands becomes power. If you're watching this from your own quiet corner tonight, maybe you've been laughed at too, underestimated, overlooked, forgotten. But remember this, your story isn't finished just because they stopped listening. You can still speak. You can still rewrite the ending. So before we say goodnight, turn off the lights, maybe let the hum of the fan guide you. Take one deep breath. You survived this story. You walked through the silence and came out still whole. Thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and thank you for keeping stories like this alive. Good night, my friends. Until next time.